Now it should be good. Okay, the 16 is a constant. We need to get it over to the constant side by subtracting it away. So we'd have x squared minus 14x equals negative 16. Any questions about that step? Okay, step 2. You should have a column of steps listed on your notes. Make sure you have all of these steps. Step 2 says we're going to divide the leading... Oh, I'm missing the word coefficient. Coefficient. Divide away the leading coefficient so that a equals 1. Meaning the x squared is just 1x squared. What's the leading coefficient of our quadratic? How many x squareds do we have? Oh, my alignment must be off. How many x squareds do we have? 1. Okay, so it's already 1. We don't have to worry about doing step 2, but you have to check. If there's a number with that x squared, you need to divide it away. Okay, step 3. We're going to find c that we learned how to do last time. And we also learned last time how to write the perfect square binomial. Okay, step 3, write c equals b over 2 squared. And we're going to write the perfect square binomial. We're trying to make this into a perfect square. Right now it's a partial square. So every single time you do one of these problems, you should write down the formula every time. The more you write down the formula, the more you'll start remembering it. What is the formula for c? B over 2 squared. Okay? Turn to your neighbor, please, and tell them what is the coefficient in the b position from our purple right here. Good, I heard a lot of correct answers. Is it positive 14? No. So I was happy to hear a lot of people said negative 14 divided by 2 squared. When we simplify this, we always have to follow. Okay, these classroom conversations can't happen. When we simplify, we have to follow, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So we have to start inside the parentheses. What is negative 14 divided by 2? Negative 7 squared. And so when I simplify, I'm going to star that. Brooklyn? I'm going to star that because it's an important piece. Okay, catch up, please. What is negative 7 squared? 49, because negative 7 times negative 7 equals 49. This is your C part. C is 49, but we do need the negative 7 because what's our perfect square binomial? Remember from last time? Something minus or plus something all squared. Ooh, reverse what you just said. X minus 7, all squared. Right here, that's the minus 7. Because when we write our trinomial, next step, we're going to add c to both sides of the equation. Step 4, write that down in your list of steps. Add c to both sides of the equation. Because we have to add in those green squares to... You need a full sheet of paper. We're done with this paper. Put it away, please. You need a full sheet of paper. We're adding in those green squares to make it a perfect square. Okay, here's my equation. Right there, that's my standard form for completing the square. I'm going to write it down, x squared minus 14x. I'm going to leave a blank. Equals negative 16. In that blank, I'm going to insert the green squares. Green squares are C value. How many green squares would we be inserting in? How many green squares? What's C? I hear some people mumbling and other people have no clue. Didn't we already find C? C equals 49. So if I add it to one side, what do I have to do on the other side? Add it too. So I have to add 49 to both sides, otherwise my equation isn't balanced. Okay, when we're solving and we have a quadratic, we are looking to factor. What two numbers multiply to 49 and add to negative 14? Negative 7 and negative 7. Wasn't that this star? Wasn't that this perfect square binomial? There's a reason I like to have you star that thing, because we're going to use it. Negative 7 squared. Otherwise, you can go through the X box and you can figure it out. But each time it works out to this simplified C inside the parentheses. So, the next step, which we've already done the left. On the left, you're going to write your perfect square binomial. On the right, we're going to sum. Sum the right. What does sum mean? Add. Yep, it's the answer to an addition problem. So on the left, step 5, please make sure you write down, is a perfect square binomial on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're going to sum the right. That means add. So after you've written this down, you have to add negative 16 plus 49. It's the same thing as 49 minus 16. What does that become? 49 minus 16. 9 minus 6 and 4 minus 1. 33. Yep. 33. Look how pretty that became. X minus 7 squared equals 33. That's a nice problem, because the last step is right here. Now we can solve for X. We need to make sure we're getting two answers. Okay. We need to put equals 33 on the right-hand side. Okay, just like these problems, practice problems we did on the board over here. How do we solve for X? When you get X by itself, it has all this stuff with it. How do we solve for X? What needs to move away from X? The minus 7 and the squared. Can we add 7 to both sides first? Actually, we can't, because it's trapped. It's trapped inside the parentheses. What do we have to do first? Square root it first. If we apply a square root, though, that must become plus and minus root 33. And there's a reason I'm leaving a little bit of a gap there. So the square root cancels out the square. We have x minus 7 equals, make sure you put plus and minus, root 33. Plus and minus root 33. We're almost there. X is almost by itself. How do we get x by itself now, Intezar? Yep, both sides. Add 7. Now, careful. When we add 7, this plus 7 needs to go in front of the plus and minus. It is not 33 plus 7, which makes 40. These are not like terms. This is an integer, and that's an irrational number in the radical family. We're not going to be adding them together. So you get two answers, which is why I wrote two answers. One answer is 7 plus root 33. The other answer is 7, any ideas? Minus root 33. Now on your homework that we'll be doing in the computer lab in a minute, it says if it doesn't come out pretty, round the decimal. I think it asks for the hundredths. So grab your calculators. Let's do 7 plus root 33. Everyone should have a calculator. What is 7? Do you know where the square root button is? Oops, I did times. Make sure you add first. 7 plus root 33. 12 point, we have to round correctly, 0.74 or 0.75. What would it be? 0.74 because it comes with a 4. 5 or more up the score, 4 and less, let it rest. 12.74. Now do the other one. If you don't want to retype everything, you can go second enter. It's like copy and paste. And all you have to do is change that plus sign to a minus sign. What's the rounded decimal? Sheldon, make sure you type it in, please. 1.25 or 1.26? 1.26 is the third digit after the decimal is a 5. 5 or more means we have to up the score to a 6. Now, if the directions don't say anything about rounding a decimal, this would be your answer. But if the directions say round the decimal, then you would write these as your answer. And the computer wants you to put a comma between them as you type both of them. Okay? Now, with all those steps listed, let's do another problem. I'm going to copy them so we can still see the steps. Let's see here. Go up, 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 up. Oh, I already have them here. Let me just erase this. Okay, there they are. Next problem. It will go so much faster now that we know the steps. M squared. Plus 16m equals negative 59. What? It's an M as in mother. M squared plus 16m minus 59. Same exact steps we've written down. First step is get it in the right form. Variables on one side, constants on the other. Is it already ready to go, or do we need to move something like we had to move on the last problem? What? It's good. We have the m's on the left and the constants on the right, correct? So we don't have to do that. Step 2, divide the leading coefficient away. So that a equals 1. A is the coefficient of the x squared, or the m squared. What's m squared's coefficient? 1. So it already is 1. We don't need to worry about that. Next problem, I'm going to throw that one in. So step 3, find c and write the perfect square binomial. Without looking, what's the formula for c? Without looking, stop cheating. What's the formula for c? What? There you go. b over 2 squared. Okay, you have to find b. You have to make sure you're careful on the sign. Cheryl, what is b? Good. So we write 16 divided by 2 squared. Now what do we do? 16 divided by 2 first, which is 8. We need these parentheses. Those are important. And I put a star. When I have the simplified parentheses, I put a star because I'm going to use that. Okay, Osley, can you be writing, please? What is 8 squared? 64. Okay, so that is my c value, the green squares. I'd be adding in 64 green squares if we were doing this with the blocks. Now, let's write our perfect square binomial. That's my abbreviation for perfect square binomial. What's my perfect square binomial? Does anyone think they know it? Okay, 1 person, 2 people. Who thinks they know the perfect square binomial? 3 people. Okay, we have a few more. Okay, Raquel? Okay, let's see. Can I do an m instead of the x? Because it's an m variable, but do we agree with the plus 8? That comes from the star. Okay, that is step 3. Any questions? How we found c in the perfect square binomial? Part 4, add C to both sides. So we need to rewrite it, and I leave spaces. The reason I leave spaces is because I want this to be in standard form, which means decreasing in power. We have m squared and m to the first power, and then our constant is m to the 0 power. How much am I going to add on both sides? 64. It was C, plus 64 to both sides. Now step 5, the perfect square binomial, because what two numbers multiplies to 64 and adds to 16? Not 16. 8. It's right here. M plus 8 times m plus 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 plus 8 is 16. So that's why we write our perfect square binomial equals, what do we do on the right-hand side? Sum. It means add. Jada, can you add those? Negative 59 plus 64, or it's the same thing as 64 minus 59. They're really close together. What's the gap between 59 and 64? 5. 5. Okay. 64 minus 59 is 5. All right? Okay, Gage, now what? Yeah, step 6, solve. So we square root both sides. Now the square root cancels out the square, so I just have m plus 8. What must I write by the square root 5? Plus and minus. I leave a little gap because something's going to go there. What's going to go there? Well, if it's plus 8, we would write negative 8. Okay, so we're going to subtract 8 on both sides. And it's going to go right in front of the plus and minus. We get two answers. Negative 8 plus root 5 and negative 8 minus root 5. Now, if the directions say nothing about rounding a decimal, you're done. If it says something about rounding a decimal, you have to grab your calculator and type it in. So I want everyone to pick up your calculators and type negative 8 plus square root 5. And I believe your homework says round to nearest hundredth, so let's do that on this one. Brenna, what'd you get for the first decimal? Okay, did she round correctly, or should it go up to a 7? What comes after the 6? A 3. So 5 or more, we up the score. 4 or less, let it rest. So since it's 4 or less, she did it correctly. Thank you. Okay, then you can go, if you don't want to retype it, you can just go second enter. It's like copy and paste. And all you have to do is change that plus sign to a subtract sign. Okay, Raul, what's the subtracted one? Negative 8 minus root 5. Round it to the nearest hundredth. Just put them, Kyle, just put them in your folders here. Negative 8 minus 5, minus root 5. I think you forgot one word. It's in the very front. Negative 10.23, okay? What comes after the 3? Ooh, a 6. So it should be negative 10.24. So if the directions say something about rounding, then we would write these as our answers. Okay? We're going to do one more to practice before I take your computer lab and you start trying these on your own. Okay. Oops. Here we go. Let me actually copy. I have the steps. You should have the steps on your notes. So when we go to the computer lab, your notes with these steps should be out on your desk, available for you to see. Okay, last example for the notes. 3. Supposed to be a skinny marker. Okay. 2b squared minus 10b minus 20 equals 8. 2b squared minus 10b minus 20 equals 8. All right, Juan, what's the first step? It's on the board. They're all listed. Get in the form with what on the left and what on the right. What does it say here in red? Variables on one side and what on the other side? Constants. Those mean the things without the variables, yeah? Yeah, so the 20 is on the wrong side. So we're going to add 20, so it's over on the constant side. So we have 2b squared minus 10b equals 28. Okay? Zach, what's the next step? Step 2. What does step 2 say? Good. Do we have a leading coefficient, meaning b squared? Does it have a number in front of it? Yes. What number's in front of it? 2. So this is the first example where we've actually had to divide that away. Divide by 2 on all of them. Every single piece. Hey, Alyssa, sit up. So we have b squared, negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. b equals 14. So divided by 2 on everything. Yep, every piece. We're trying to make it as simple as possible. This is way simpler than what we started with. Okay, Raul, what's the next step after step 2? Okay, find c. b over 2 all squared. Okay, Raul, what is the value of b? It's just a number. Negative 5. So we put in negative 5 over 2 squared. It's very important to get the negative sign there. Okay, we have to simplify. What is negative 5 divided by 2 in a simplified fraction form? Because it doesn't divide nicely. Negative 5 over 2, can that simplify any further? No. So I'm going to star this because that is simplified. It's negative 2.5 as a decimal, but I want to know the fraction. Okay? Now if I squared, it just means I square the numerator and I square the denominator. Negative 5 squared is... Nope, negative 5 times negative 5 is... There we go. 25 over 2 times 2 is 4. This is the c, the number of green squares that you're going to be adding in to make it a perfect square. And we need to write our perfect square binomial. Who can tell me the perfect square binomial? Raul, you need to sit up. Who has the perfect square binomial? Hayden? It's not that one. There you go. The starred one, right? b minus, just put it in your folders, ladies. b minus 5/2 all squared. Okay? Now step 4. What do we do in step 4? Yeah, just put it in your folder. Oh, I have plenty of staplers. There's like 4 of them floating around somewhere. What do I do on step 4? Add c to both sides. So the easiest equation to write is this green one. Okay? So So I'm going to rewrite it, but I'm going to leave a gap so that I can add c to both sides. What was c? Melissa, what did we find for c? Say it louder. 25 over 4. So add 25 over 4. Add 25 over 4. Okay. Step 4 complete. Step 5, what goes on the left? Perfect square binomial. Don't we already know that? Didn't we already figure that out? Yeah, it is v minus what? 5 halves squared, because negative 5 halves times negative 5 halves is 25 over 4, and negative 5 halves is just negative 2.5. Negative 2.5 plus negative 2.5 is negative 5, so it works. On the right-hand side, we have to sum. In order to add fractions, you have to have something special. Common denominator. So in green, I'm going to times by 4 and divide by 4. Because my common denominator needs to be a 4 in this case. You need to have your pencil in your hand and be writing, please. I need to know what 14 divided by 4 is. 28 times 2, is that 56? Is that right? Someone do that for me. 56? 56 plus 25. They share the denominator, so I can put it in one big fraction over 4. If you keep it as a fraction, this one's going to come out nice. What is 56 plus 25? Intezar, you need to be writing, please. What is 56 plus 25? Ah, this is a good number. The reason I know it's a good number is because it's a perfect square. Because now when we do step 6 to solve, how do you get rid of the square? Square root. And guess what? Square root of 81 I can do. And square root of 4 I can do. What is the square root of 81? Okay, and square root of 4? 2, but I need to put something in front of all that. Plus and minus. Don't forget that plus and minus, because you should have 2 answers. On the left, we just have b minus 5 halves. Okay, Emily, what would we do now to solve for b? Yep, to both sides. Now, careful. Add 5 halves. Where do I actually add the 5 halves? Yeah, this needs to go in front of the plus and minus. So I get 2 things. 5 halves plus 9 halves, and 5 halves minus 9 halves, which actually comes out nicely. And they already have a common denominator, which is wonderful. If they have a common denominator, you can just add the tops together. Gerardo, what's our 5 plus 9 going to be? What's 5 plus 9? 14. Gerardo, do you know what 14 over 2 is? 14 divided by 2? What? 7. Look how lovely that number is. What's 5 minus 9? Fernando? What's 5 minus 9? Almost. 5 minus negative 4. Over 2. Negative 4 divided by 2 is a pretty number. Negative 2. We don't have to round those decimals because they're integers. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take these notes. You're not going to put them away. We're going to have them out on our computer desk so you can see the steps and you can see examples. When we get in there, you should have a piece of paper out, because when you're doing Math Excel, you should be working it out on paper and turning that paper in. So take all your stuff. We're not coming back. Take all your stuff. And let's go into the computer lab. Take a calculator too. I will bring the calculator to. What? Okay, put it in your folder then. Okay? Yeah, I told you could bring it back. Let's run over to computer lab. If you sit on the front row, you should sit in the front row of the computer lab. If you sit in the back row, you should sit in the back row of the computer lab. So I need to stop the recording. Take all of your belongings, please.